Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Storytime with Uncle Reddit. I had a special request today from one of our viewers. They asked if we could do some more entitled people. They might have said entitled parents, but I just went generic entitled people today. So, let's read some entitled people stories. Oh yeah, there's your cat tax. I'm tired of my best friend not getting a driver's license and having to depend on me or another friend of mine. For context, my friend is 26 and I'm 24. Got my license back when I was 18, and ever since, he refused to get himself a license because he's afraid of driving. With this situation, he's always dependent on us whenever he has to go to a place where public transport doesn't arrive or he has an emergency. A few years ago, an ex-girlfriend of his came to visit and I had to drive them to multiple places until I got tired. The day I had to drive them back to the station for her to leave, I completely refused by giving him excuses. After seeing my passive-aggressive attitude, I know, it's not the best thing to do, he understood and asked the other friend to do so. This year, after doing a 5-hour trip with him, I started to become a little bit tired of his dependence. After driving all the trip alone, while he was browsing through his phone or reading comics, I became more annoyed. I'm tired of him depending on me or another friend to go to certain places. I don't care if he pays me the gas, I'm just tired of him being dependent on others. His ex-girlfriend also got tired of him because of that. Not to mention that most of the times he's not even punctual. Don't get me wrong, he's a great friend and has been since forever. It's just these situations that grinds my gears, and I'm tired that he ignores it when I tell him to get his driver's license once and for all. So here's my take on it. If he's that good of a friend, you got to give him a little bit of tough love, man. Come on. You know, I can understand the fear of driving. I've known people with that, but they find ways to deal with it, to work with it. Public transportation is one, and like you said, they don't go everywhere, but that's fine. In this day and age, Uber's huge. I don't know where you live. Uber, taxi, whatever. Private car service. I don't know what kind of a job he has. That one's kind of expensive. The bottom line is you need to help this along for this person to be more independent. You are enabling this person, so therefore you're kind of partially to blame. You've created a big part of this situation by just constantly giving in and doing it. And you're right, the passive aggressiveness is not going to be helpful. You really need to have a sit-down conversation. If they're that good of a friend, they'll understand as long as you stay reasonable and rational in the conversation and just state facts. Don't talk about your feelings, just state facts and you'll be alright. My entitled neighbor and why I'm afraid of him. This one's a doozy, guys, so bear with me. Hello, Reddit. Info on me. I'm a 30 female American with several mental disorders including autism, psychosis, depression, and the list goes on. However, something to note, that these do not cause me to lose compassion. In fact, they do the opposite. I'm very friendly and worry too much about others, and that often gets me in trouble. I live in SIP housing, supported independent, forgot what the P stands for, but it's not an adult foster home. In fact, most people here come from group homes. I'm a rare case, which I didn't. However, I did fall into a massive depressive lapse, which caused me to require some extra assistance. Things you need to know about this is there's one washer and dryer outside of my apartment, and staff in the house for 12 hours a day and then on call for 12. When I moved in, I was the only girl, and at first things were fine. The neighbor in the apartment down from me seemed fine. We will from now on call him entitled a-hole. Cast: me, OP, Lindsay, staff manager, Sam, secondary staff, owners of the building, conservator, she handles my money and was once his guardian, downstairs neighbor, sweet 65-plus-year-old lady, entitled a-hole, neighbor on the top floor with me, annoying neighbor, she's on the downstairs apartment, friendly neighbor, she shares the wall with my apartment. To the story. When I first moved in, entitled a-hole was friendly. Sometimes he'd ask to borrow a bowl or something, but he was always good at returning it. However, very quickly he noticed one thing. I drove a car. The model is important. I had a tiny Prius. However, he was too large to fit into my tiny car, and thus, when asking me super late at night for rides, I would always decline. I didn't decline just due to his size, however. Yeah, it was a factor, but I'm night blind. I can't see at night, and thus I refuse to drive late at night. This is where his entitlement starts. He went from nice to mean in a matter of seconds, blaring loud music, locking me out if I walked out the downstairs door, luckily I carried a key, and other petty things like that. Soon, downstairs neighbor moved in, and he did the same to her, but instead she used 420, so he'd ask for that instead of car rides. As I was still the only one with a car that wasn't staff, I got along great with downstairs neighbor, and she often would cook meals with me, to which he would suddenly be there as soon as he noticed, begging for meals. Quite like the post I made recently, I refused to feed him too, as he never made any effort to help us with prep, cleaning, or even purchasing food. The office cat he would dump water on, threaten to get rid of, and More until Lindsay, who owned the cat, gave him to her daughter when she finally moved into a place that allowed pets. The reason the office cat was there, Lindsay's dogs kept trying to eat him, so it was safer at the office where he'd get attention than with the dogs that could and would eat him. Then downstairs neighbor's keys went missing. She thought it was odd, and in a few days they reappeared. However, she'd catch entitled a-hole breaking into her apartment. Despite my suggestions to call the police or asking if she needed help, she declined and simply started refusing him to come in and finally had her locks changed. And then I got the dreaded sign. So I had a sign on my door that people could write on when I started working from home. This only lasted a few months before my mental health deteriorated and I had to quit, but it was simply to tell people when not to bug me. After I quit, it seemed okay, but then the true sign appeared. At a craft show, I found an adorable sign that said, "My cats and I talk crap about you." I thought it was so funny. I bought it on the spot and put it on my door. I have 2 cats, and thus I thought that it would fit. I'd noticed sometimes my sign would be flipped around when I got home from shopping, or woke up. However odd, I just put it back. Then entitled a-hole wrote on my door, "Cause issues for me? I'll cause issues for the town." I instantly went to Lindsay and told her about it. She came, and sure enough, it was his writing. She sent images to the owner, and he told me to take down my sign, so I begrudgingly did. I also removed the pen from my erase board signs, so he couldn't write threatening messages to me anymore. However, he was never told to remove his blink security sign on his door, which was handwritten and right under his peephole. Things only escalated from there. He started turning the only lights off in the hallway. He started swearing at me if I walked past him, glaring at me, creeping up on me. He'd stand out front of my door and I'd see his shadow because of my tinted and distorted plastic and glass panel I had in my door. He then started messing with my laundry, and not because I left it in the dryer too long either. I'd just thrown my laundry into the dryer and suddenly I hear someone messing with the machine. Odd, I had just put mine in 5 minutes before, and I had a load in the washer. I go to open the door and he's blocking it. He had taken my laundry out and thrown it onto the floor, and then thrown his in. Caught in the act, he quickly threw his out and grabbed it, putting most of mine back but missing a few pieces. I got out and sure enough, the dryer had been switched to a whole different mode, and my still wet laundry was partially on the ground. I went and complained again. Lindsay talked to the owner. He assigned us days to do our laundry instead of handling this person. A friendly neighbor had been coming out of her apartment at this time and had seen what had happened and told me afterwards. A few minutes later he did it again and I caught him and told him to stop. He cussed me out and left. Please note, I called him out through a closed and locked door. I was not going face to face with this huge male when I am a tiny female. Then the fire alarms started. Yes, the fire alarms. Please note I live in a super old building. The wires for the fire alarms on the top floor are connected, so if, say, entitled neighbor decided to set off his fire alarm at 3 a.m. by pressing the button, it set them off for us all. Well, at least friendly neighbor, entitled a-hole, and myself. Again I complained, and again Lindsay and Sam did what they could, but after a week of no sleep, it stopped. However, my insomnia had been started due to being afraid to sleep as loud noises caused me to become paralyzed. Entitled a-hole then would wait till right before noise violations could be called on and would blare his music in bursts, and right as it hit time that I could call the police, he'd stop. This would be an on and off routine, and sadly staff could do nothing as the owner simply said to call the police. One day on a group shopping trip, I decided to buy us girls drinks. He was in the car and being extremely rude, slamming doors, glaring at me, swearing at me when no one was around, etc. So I didn't get him one. He shoved annoying neighbor as she was trying to help me carry my food upstairs. We'd gotten to the door, headed up, I unlocked it, he stormed down the stairs and shoved her, then slammed the door behind him. This door auto-locks, so I had to unlock it again for her. Mind you, a few days prior he had just shoved me. We didn't know what to do, so we just went on with our day. The lights continued to go on and off, and my door was nearly broken into at 2 a.m. Again, we called the owner, again no response. Downstairs neighbor had told me that entitled a-hole had been talking about how he was a tester for God. Oh dear. And a lot of other unhinged things. Nothing was done. Finally, I had a panic attack. I'd never had one before and I went to the ER. I came back and settled into my bed, slept a few hours, and it was my laundry day. Going to put my laundry in, I noticed something. He had put his laundry in, on my day specifically, and was doing it intentionally to goad me. I finally broke. I had had enough. I went to ask Sam what she could do, and she said she was unable to do anything. Before people yell about Sam, I questioned her further later. She wasn't afraid for herself, she was afraid because there isn't staff here 24/7. She was afraid for me. I just wanted clean sheets and I couldn't even get that basic right. I called the owner sobbing, explained everything. Nothing happened. My insurance called me the next day asking about the ER trip. They're sending me an emergency button. I called my conservator, his ex-guardian, and expressed my fear for my own life as he's become increasingly unhinged. She told me to call the cops. I had an annoying neighbor call them a few hours ago. Still no one's dropped by, but we'll be filing a police report. I told my doctor what's going on, and she wants my psych medical professional to see about getting me something to help with my fear, as I'm growing increasingly frightful and more dread is consuming me. Lindsay refuses to be around him as she's afraid of him. Though she's not said it directly, you can see her tense any time he comes around. Sam's tried to soothe me. Every female in his 6-person residence, so 4 of us, are terrified of him. Finally, we called the owner and his brother, and they're trying to figure out what to do. My mental caseworker is trying to find me a new place to live, in case I can't get him out of here. Holy cow. Alright, how do I say this? I've had some experience with group homes in the past, not personally, like I was never a resident, but I knew people who were residents. I've had relatives that were residents, and I know a lot of the rules and regulations depend on your state, your jurisdiction in that state, the building owner, the company who runs I'm saying group home is a catch-all. So I know the rules are kind of fuzzy off and on, but that kind of treatment from that guy, no matter what everybody's situation is in that building, that is a legal issue. You can call the cops every time. Don't rely on your neighbor to call them. You need to call them too. If they get multiple reports from multiple residents in the building, so, if there's 4 of you that actually fear this guy and he's showing signs of, like you said, becoming unhinged or more unhinged, and he obviously has some psychological issues going on, maybe they can help get the ball rolling with whoever his caseworker is, whatever program he's in. But yeah, you need to deal with that because he's not going to get better. He's going to treat you worse and worse as time goes on. And yeah, I feel for you. Yeah, I know I rambled on a little bit, but you got to stare at the cat while I talked. But OP, I hope you get help soon with this. And yeah, it's tough, man. And you got your own issues to deal with, and nothing's easy at all. When you have to deal with that kind of stuff, let alone when somebody else is piling their stuff on top of you. So, Karen stole my straw in Starbucks. I admit this isn't as bad as other stories here, but I thought it was worth telling, so there you go. This happened late 2020. Over here, masks were mandated since March till this very day. After a 3-month-long lockdown, restaurants and cafes finally reopened late July of that year. I hadn't eaten out during that time, and the one thing I really missed was nice, non-espresso machine pods. Coffee. I stopped by one of the lovely Siren cafes after doing the groceries and was happy to see no lines. Just one lady in front of me. Now, this was in 2020. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but the woman could have walked right out of a Karen meme. The red dress more suited to her daughter, the bleach blonde hair with an asymmetrical bob cut. All of it. Remember when I said there was a mask mandate? This woman took it off the minute she was in the cafe. Put her face right in the small opening of the plexiglass to yell at the poor barista, leaving her spit right there on the plastic for me to marvel at later. Then finally moved to the side, arms crossed, waiting for her drink. I placed my order, then kept a distance from the crazy lady that simply stood there maskless. Finally, both our drinks arrived. Mine iced and hers a weird latte so hot. Before I could get to mine, the woman actually stole my straw. Yes, it was still wrapped, but what? Holding the straw like a sword, she marched right at me. You know how when you play chicken with cars as a team? That. I admit I was too shocked to move. Her face came so close I could count the liver spots before she finally swerved away, bumping into my shoulder and spilling her drink on her own dress. Between the curses and the spit that came flying out, I just grabbed my cup, the new straw the barista rushed to get, and left. I heard her yelling at the poor lone barista as I walked out. Not sure what all that was about. I was just in there for the coffee. Okay. I could just picture this, the asymmetrical bob cut, the red teeny bopper dress, and the spit flying out of her mouth as she was yelling and screeching and whatever. Some people are just nuts. But good for you for just ignoring the whole straw thing as far as, not confronting her, because maybe she thought she was entitled to a straw. Some people use straws with their hot coffee drinks. I never understood it, but hey, to each their own. Karen in a hospital. This happened about 10 years ago, back when I worked at my local hospital. I was one of the reception staff in a busy outpatient clinic. Just for some context, I live in the UK. A woman, henceforth called Karen, had just had a scan. I think it was either a CT or an MRI. And she came in to book an appointment with her doctor for the results. The scan department had told her to book an appointment for about 2 weeks' time. I looked up the clinic and offered her an appointment. She couldn't make it for some reason. I offered her another appointment. Again, it wasn't convenient. I offered her a third date. Also not good. I offered her appointments and she kept saying she was too busy on that day. A holiday, something at her kid's school, an appointment in another hospital. Her cat was getting spayed. She would only see a consultant, not a registrar. Her car was getting waxed. Her gerbil was getting married. Okay, that last one's an exaggeration, but she had a reason to reject every single appointment. By the time we reached an appointment she could make, it was nearly 18 weeks away. She accepted the appointment and went on her merry way. Not 15 minutes later, an email comes through from the hospital's complaints department. The email was sent to me, my manager, the manager of the outpatient clinic, and a name I didn't recognize. It turned out that as soon as Karen left the clinic, she went straight to the complaints department and complained that I had given her a clinic appointment in 18 weeks' time when she had specifically been told that she needed an appointment in 2 weeks' time. She had said that this was the one and only appointment I had offered her and had told her to take it or leave it. She insisted on being given an earlier appointment than the one she had been given. The complaints department basically demanded an explanation from me of why I had booked Karen's appointment so far off. I was like, what the F? So I figured that since complaints wanted an explanation that I'd give them one. I listed every single clinic appointment Karen had rejected and for what reason. There was a tally of the 18 earlier appointments she had declined. I pointed out to complaints that if Karen were able to clear her busy schedule on one of those days, perhaps spaying her cat could be rescheduled, then I would be more than happy to book her a clinic appointment in 2 weeks' time like I had tried to not a half hour earlier. Not a very exciting story, but beware the Karen in the wild. They can be found anywhere. That lady was just itching to start trouble and looking for a fight. I've seen people like this. They are totally nuts. They will do everything just to be contrary and then try to swing it around and blame it on you. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to keep the fun going, click this video right here on the screen. I think you're going to enjoy this one too. See ya.